It was a late shift, one of those quiet nights where the city seems to be holding its breath. The kind of night you almost welcome a call, just to break the monotony. Then the radio crackled. Unit, my unit, respond to a possible 1016 domestic. Disturbance at vague rural route descriptor. Caller is a juvenile, 1016 domestic. My gut tightened. Domestics are always unpredictable, always a powder keg. Juvenile caller, even worse. That usually means things are really bad if a kid's the one reaching out. I keyed the mic. Dispatch, any further details on that 1016? The dispatcher's voice came back, a little tinny. Negative, my unit. Call was very broken, heavy, static. Sounded like a young male. Managed to get the address, but not much else. Sounded distressed. Mentioned something about fighting, maybe a parent. 10-4, en route. My partner, let's call him Jay, grunted from the passenger seat. Kid calling on a domestic. Never a good sign. Nope, I agreed. The address was way out on the edge of our jurisdiction, bordering on county. One of those places where houses are spread thin, swallowed by trees and long driveways. Takes a while to get out there, and backup takes even longer. The drive itself felt off. The further we got from the city lights, the darker the world became. Streetlights became a memory. The only illumination came from our headlights, cutting a swathe through what felt like an endless tunnel of trees. The kind of dark that presses in on you. We finally found the turnoff, a gravel road that was more potholes than path. The house itself was set way back, almost invisible from the road. A 2-story, older build, but it looked lived in. Maybe a bit unkempt, toys scattered on the porch, that kind of thing. All the windows were dark. A single car, an older sedan, was parked in the driveway. An unsettling silence hung over the place. Quiet, Jay muttered, and I couldn't disagree. Too quiet. We parked a little ways back, cut the engine. The silence was almost absolute, broken only by the crunch of gravel under our boots as we approached. I did a quick visual sweep. No obvious signs of forced entry, no sounds from within. The house just looked still, expectant. Police! Anyone home? I called out, knocking firmly on the front door. The wood felt solid. Nothing. Just that heavy silence. Jay tried the doorbell. A faint standard chime echoed from somewhere deep. Inside, then died. Still no response. All right, I said, keeping my voice low. I'll check windows on this side. You take the back, see if you can spot anything. Got it. Jay moved off around the side of the house. I went from window to window on the front and one side. They were all dark, curtains drawn in most. I cupped my hands around my eyes, trying to peer in through a gap in one. But it was like looking into a void. My flashlight beam just got swallowed by the blackness. A prickle of unease started to crawl up my spine. This wasn't just a quiet house. It felt wrong. Then it happened. A sudden, brilliant flash from an upstairs window, almost blinding, followed instantaneously by the unmistakable booming crack of a gunshot. Muffled, but definitely a gunshot from inside. My heart hammered. Jay came running back around the corner, eyes wide. You hear that? Gunshot! Upstairs! I yelled, already moving towards the front door. Dispatch! Shots fired at the vague rural route descriptor location. We're making entry. No. Time for pleasantries now. I kicked the door hard, right near the lock. It shuddered, then gave way with a splintering crack, flying inwards and banging against an interior wall. Police! Show yourselves! I shouted into the darkness, my weapon drawn, flashlight beam cutting a nervous path ahead. Jay was right beside me, doing the same. The inside of the house was pitch black. Blacker than outside, if that was possible. A close, stuffy smell hit us, stale air, a hint of old food, and something else. Something metallic, almost like copper, faint but there. The air was heavy, cold, colder than it should have been. Police! If you're in here, make yourself known. Jay's voice echoed unnervingly. We moved slowly, methodically. Standard room. Clearing, what we're trained for. Flashlights darting into corners, weapons ready. The silence was back, thick and oppressive, broken only by our own breathing and the occasional scuff of our boots on the hardwood floor. "Anyone who fired that shot, come out slowly with your hands in the air," I commanded, my voice tight. Still, nothing. It felt like we were shouting into a vacuum. We cleared the small entryway, moved into what looked like a living room. Furniture was ordinary, if a little cluttered. A TV, a sofa, kids' toys scattered on the floor. It looked like a family lived here. A family that had suddenly stopped. Then, a flicker of movement in the periphery of my flashlight beam at the far end of a hallway leading deeper into the house. "Freeze! Police!" A small figure, a kid, darting across the hallway. Looked like a boy, maybe 10 or 12. He was running, desperation in his movements, his small face a pale blur in the split second I saw him. Before I could even process it, before I could shout, another command, another figure stepped out from a doorway just beyond where the kid had run. Taller, older, holding something long, a shotgun. My blood ran cold. It all happened in a split second. The older boy, teenager maybe, raised the shotgun. Another blinding flash, another deafening roar that seemed to suck all the air from the hallway. The little kid crumpled, just dropped, like a puppet, with its strings cut. "No!" I screamed, raw, instinctive. Jay and I both opened fire. Our service weapons barked, muzzle flashes momentarily illuminating the horrifying scene. We emptied half our magazines at the figure with the shotgun. Our bullets. They went through him. I saw them. Saw the rounds pass through his form as if he were made of smoke, impacting the wall behind him with dull thuds. He didn't even flinch. He just stood there, the shotgun still smoking. Then, he turned his head. Slowly, and looked right at us. Couldn't see his face clearly in the shifting flashlight beams, but I felt his gaze. Cold. Empty. He raised the shotgun again, leveled it at us. Jay and I both braced, instinctively flinching, expecting the impact, the pain. He fired. The flash, the roar. Nothing. We were still standing, untouched. Adrenaline coursed through me, hot and sickening. My ears were ringing. And then, he was gone. The older boy, the shotgun, vanished, just not there anymore. I swung my flashlight, wildly. The hallway was empty. Jay was doing the same, his breath coming in ragged gasps. What the hell was that?" he stammered. My light found the spot where the younger boy had fallen. He was gone too. No body, no blood, nothing. Just the clean floorboards and the pockmarks on the wall where our rounds had hit. My mind was reeling. Hallucination? Mass hysteria? But we both saw it. We both fired our weapons. The smell of gunpowder from our guns was thick, in the air, mingling with that faint phantom scent. Did we just imagine that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "No way," Jay said, his voice hoarse. "No damn way. I saw it. I shot at him." We stood there for a long moment, the silence pressing in again, now laced with an icy, unnameable dread. This wasn't a domestic. This wasn't anything we'd ever trained for. "We need to clear the rest of the house," I said, trying to inject some normalcy, some procedure back into the situation. But my hands were shaking. "Check upstairs. That's where the first shot came from." Jay nodded, looking pale but resolute. "Right." We moved towards the stairs, every creak of the old wood under our boots sounding like a gunshot in the oppressive silence. The stale air smell was stronger up here. Each step felt like we were descending further into a nightmare, not climbing. The upstairs landing was small, leading to a few closed doors. We checked the first one. A child's bedroom, clothes strewn about, posters on the wall. Empty. The second, a bathroom, towels on the floor. Equally silent. The chill in the air seemed to deepen. The last door at the end of the hall. It was slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly with the barrel of my gun, Jay covering me. My flashlight beam pierced the darkness. A bedroom. A large bed. In the center, unmade, and on the bed, two shapes, vague outlines under a rumpled duvet. As my light hit them, the scene replayed. The older boy was there again, standing beside the bed, shotgun in hand. He looked younger somehow, his face contorted, in something that wasn't quite rage, wasn't quite pain, more like a terrible hollow resolve. He raised the shotgun, aimed it at the figures in the bed. "Don't!" I yelled, even though some part of me knew it was useless. He fired. Once. Twice. The flashes lit up the room, the roars deafening. The figures on the bed. They didn't move. Then he turned, that same slow, deliberate turn. And he saw us, standing in the doorway. There was no surprise on his face, just that same chilling emptiness. He raised the shotgun towards us again. Fired. Again. The flash, the roar. Again, nothing hit us, and then, just like before, he flickered and vanished. The figures on the bed, gone. The room was empty, no bodies, no blood, no spent shells, just the lingering smell of phantom gunpowder and the suffocating weight of what we'd just witnessed. Twice. This was madness. Sheer, unadulterated madness. "Okay," Jay said, his voice strained. "I'm officially losing my damn mind." "Me too," I managed. "Let's try dispatch again." I fumbled for my radio. "Dispatch, unit, my unit. Can you copy?" Static. Thick, impenetrable static, like the call that had brought us here. Jay tried his. Same result. "Comms are out, completely jammed." We were alone in this house, utterly alone with whatever this was. "We searched this place top to bottom," I said, my voice harder than I felt. "Every inch. There has to be an explanation." We did. We went through every room, every closet, the small attic space, the unfinished basement. Nothing. No bodies, no fresh bloodstains, no weapons, no signs of a struggle beyond what we'd seen happen. The house was just a house. A recently lived-in house where something terrible had clearly occurred, but all physical evidence of the victims and perpetrator had vanished, leaving only these impossible echoes. It was like the house was a stage, and we'd stumbled into a performance of some horrific, never-ending play. Exhausted, frustrated, and deeply, deeply unnerved, we ended up back in that upstairs bedroom. Jay walked over to the window, the one where we'd seen the initial flash. He stared out into the moonlit backyard. The moon was high now, casting long, eerie shadows. He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Hey, come look at this." I joined him. The backyard was mostly grass, a bit overgrown around the edges, a swing set standing forlornly to one side. But under the pale moonlight you could see them. Patches. Rectangular patches in the earth, slightly sunken where the grass was disturbed, darker. They were faint, easily missed in daylight or from ground level. But from up here, with the angle of the moonlight. "What are those?" Jay asked, but I think we both knew. My stomach churned. He'd been in the backyard earlier. He hadn't mentioned seeing anything like this then. The angle, the light, it all mattered. "Let's get outside," I said. "Try comms again from there." We practically ran out of that house. The fresh, night air, even though it was cold, felt like a blessing after the stale, charged atmosphere inside. My radio crackled to life the moment we cleared the porch. "My unit, dispatch, what's your status? We've been trying to reach you." Relief washed over me, so potent it almost buckled my knees. "Dispatch unit, my unit. We're outside the residence. We need backup and CSI and..." Maybe a priest, I don't know. "What's the situation, my unit?" I took a deep breath. "Dispatch. We have what appear to be graves. In the backyard. Multiple." The silence on the other end was telling. Then, 10-4, my unit. "Backup and relevant units are en route. ETA 20 minutes. We waited, flashlights trained on those patches in the backyard, the house looming dark and silent behind us. It felt like it was watching us. When backup finally arrived, along with the detectives and the CSI van, it was like a dam bursting. The sheer normalcy of other officers of procedure was a lifeline. We gave our preliminary statements, trying to make sense of what we'd seen, leaving out the impossible parts for now. No one would believe us. Not yet. The CSI team got to work on the patches. Shovels bit into the soft earth. It didn't take long. They found them. 3 bodies, 2 adults, a male and a female, in one shallow grave, consistent with what we'd seen in the upstairs bedroom. The decomposition suggested they'd been there for a few days at most. In a separate, even shallower grave, they found the younger boy. He too looked like he'd been there for only a couple of days. The bodies were bagged and transported to the morgue. The coroner wouldn't give any on-site preliminary beyond confirming they were deceased and the state of decomposition. We'd have to wait for the official autopsy for causes of death. The house was processed. They found our spent casings, the bullet holes in the wall of the hallway, but nothing else. No other weapon, no other shells, no blood that wasn't ours. Jay had nicked his hand on the broken door frame. And the older brother, the shooter, no trace of him. Not in the house, not in any of the graves. He was just gone, as if he'd stepped out of the scene once his part in the replay was done. Days. Later, the full coroner's report came in. The parents had died from shotgun wounds. Multiple. Executed. The boy was different. He had injuries. A shotgun shot injured him badly. But the official cause of death, asphyxiation due to suffocation. Dirt found deep in his lungs. He'd been buried alive, injured but still breathing. My blood turned to ice all over again, colder this time. The static-filled call, the distressed juvenile. He'd called from under the ground. He'd been calling for help as he was dying, as the earth pressed in on him. And the house had shown us. It had replayed the tragedy. His final moments, his family's murder. We never found the older brother. The case went cold, another unsolved family annihilation, with a supernatural twist that no official report would ever contain. Jay and we talked about it, just once, a few weeks later. We agreed we saw what we saw. We agreed never to talk about it to anyone else on the force. They'd think we were crazy. Maybe we were. But I know that house is still out there. And sometimes, late at night when the radio's quiet, I can almost hear that static, and a little boy's voice crying out from the dark. I don't sleep much anymore. Enjoy another amazing story. I always heard that asking about Grandpa was forbidden. The moment I uttered the word grandfather, Dad would snap. His eyes darkened, his jaw clenched, and every time I heard the same thing. He's no longer part of this family, period. I only saw Grandpa twice as a child. I was too young to remember much, just fragments. The smell of charred meat, smoke curling from his pipe bowl, and a silence that clung to the air like wet wool. The only thing I recall clearly is how enormous he seemed whenever he visited. Or maybe I was just too small. Mom would pull me away, quick and firm. When I turned 18 and moved to the city for college, I found myself digging through Dad's old things during a rare, quiet moment. Among bills and expired driver's licenses, I discovered a yellowed envelope. Inside was a crumpled letter sent from a town called Lowdell, a speck on the map, 2 hours north. The return address read, George and Marilyn Arter. At first, the names meant nothing, but George brought back the smell of smoke. Looking back now, I don't know why I went there. But I've always been curious, and something pulled me toward that place. Forbidden fruit is sweet, right? So during break, I decided to meet my grandfather. I rehearsed questions, why he and Dad were estranged, what happened, but none of it would matter. Lowdell was smaller than any town I'd seen. 1 gas station, 1 diner, 1 grocery store, and houses scattered along winding roads like fallen teeth. The last stretch from the bus stop, I walked. At the end of a gravel path, framed by bare trees and silence, stood a red wooden house. He opened the door before I could knock. Good Lord Almighty, he boomed, grinning wide with crooked teeth. Look who it is, my favorite grandson. God, it's good to see ya. Grandpa was massive. His frame barely fit the doorway. He wore a brown flannel shirt stretched over his gut, the collar stained, a thick pipe seemingly fused to his lips. His hug knocked the air out of me. Behind him stood Grandma. Her hair was neatly pinned, her sweater hanging loose as if years of worry had whittled her down to bone. Her eyes met mine, and didn't match her smile. They said, "What have you done?" Grandpa ushered me inside, clapping my back so hard I stumbled. The house smelled of smoke, meat, and something coppery brown. The furniture was old but sturdy, the kind that outlives generations. He gave me a tour, laughing and gesturing wildly, and I sat with them in the living room, dark from heavy curtains. Grandma brought me tea with trembling hands. The first few days were tolerable. Grandpa joked, smoked non-stop, and taught me wood carving. He told stories to neighborhood kids who trickled in after school, 2 or 3 at a time. He was what people call the life of the party, and he really was. I don't know how to explain it, but Grandpa had this magnetism. People just gravitated toward him. He was kind, genuine, funny. His life stories were fascinating, and he clearly loved the attention, his pipe never leaving his mouth. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing: his appetite. He ate constantly. Bacon by the pound, bread by the loaf, pies in single sittings. Once I watched him devour an entire rotisserie chicken and a pan of cornbread before dinner. He chewed, loudly, wheezing, sweating, never stopping. Plates piled around him like building blocks, yet he always wanted more. Licking plates, sucking grease from his fingers, gulping tea by the liter, nearly choking on it. Grandma brought out plates piled with pork chops, sausages, whole chickens, gravy boats the size of bowls, and he inhaled it all, groaning with pleasure. His face gleamed with grease. He didn't chew so much as engulf, as if tasting was optional. "You always eat like this?" I asked, half joking. He grunted around his pipe and patted his belly. "Big man needs big meals. I figured he just needed a lot of food. But not this. Much. All day he only ate and smoked, barely able to move from his chair, just sitting in the kitchen waiting for the next massive meal. Hell, I don't think I've eaten as much in my life as he did in one dinner." Still, evenings with him were fun, until the hunger returned. One night, Grandma caught me alone in the hall while Grandpa snored like a bear in the next room. "You need to leave," she whispered, her face pale, lips cracked. "While he's asleep. Tomorrow, first thing." "But why?" She flinched at the sound of heavy footsteps. Grandpa emerged from the shadows, pipe smoldering, eyes unreadable. "Everything all right?" "Just telling him about my childhood," Grandma answered too quickly. Grandpa stared at us in silence, and for the first time, I felt afraid. The only light was his burning pipe. The only sound, his labored breathing. He filled the hallway, his bulk swallowing the space. "This house has many stories," he finally rumbled before retreating to bed. I barely slept that night, between Grandpa's snoring and the dread gnawing at me. Leave in a hurry? But why? By morning, the fridge was empty. Grandpa sat at the table, licking his lips, breathing hard. "Where's that woman gotten to? Starvin' over here." Grandma returned with 3 bulging grocery bags and frantically unpacked them, cooking while Grandpa fidgeted, growling incoherently. I claimed I wasn't hungry, a lie. Watching him eat, devouring even the gristle, made me nauseous. Instead, I went to the store chewing on Grandma's warning. Something about this was starting to scare me, especially one thought. How does he eat so much? At his age, that obese, chain-smoking, how was his heart still beating? At the store, the clerk and a woman were whispering, tense, glancing at the windows. "Ben's lost another pig," the woman muttered. "6th one." "Coyote? Bear?" the clerk asked vaguely. "When's the last time you saw a coyote, let alone a bear, around here?" Sorry," I cut in awkwardly. "Animals are disappearing? You new here, kid?" The woman sighed, recalling something grim. "First pigs, then goats, chickens. Even dogs. What's left is just bones, gnawed, split open, like something sucked out the brains. But no one's seen an animal do it. No tracks. No blood. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. I was drenched in sweat. They didn't know what could do this, but I might. And Grandpa? He still laughed, smoked, told stories. Evenings, he'd call me to the porch, where kids gathered like moths to his booming voice. One older girl, maybe 10, sat at his feet and asked, "Mr. Arter, are you ever scared?" He looked at her and smiled slowly. "Only when the meat runs out," he said, laughing like it was a joke. The kids laughed too. I didn't. When I asked about the missing animals, Grandpa just chuckled through a mouthful of stew. Wild times, huh? Makes me feel young again. He played cards with me and the kids. Everyone adored him. But I grew uneasy around his bloated body, his yellow teeth grinning. Threw smoke as he launched into another story. Too good, too vivid, too scary. The kids leaned in wide-eyed while Grandpa basked in their attention until Grandma, shaking, announced, "We're out of food, nothing left. No meat, no eggs, not even flour. We can't—" "Find more," Grandpa growled, pupils shrinking to pins. "I'm starving." He didn't move from his chair. Even when we went to bed, he stayed in the kitchen. Around 3 a.m., I woke up thirsty and flicked on the kitchen light, then nearly had a heart attack. Grandpa was still in his chair, trembling, staring at the same spot. His skin was pale, almost translucent, veins purple beneath. His pipe was gone. For the first time, I saw him without it, and that alone made me want to crawl into a corner. At first, I thought he was dead, but then he shook harder, sweat beading on his forehead. "Grandpa? You okay?" I whispered. "Get me food, boy." His voice held no trace of the man I'd known. No warmth, just threat. Something not human. "I'll go to the store in the morning." "Just sleep, Grandpa." "Get me food." He didn't look up. I edged past him, turning off the light. All night, strange sounds came from below. Growls, wet slithering, the front door creaking. At dawn, Grandpa was gone, the door ajar. Grandma stood behind me, eyes red with fury and regret. "Go, grandson. Now." He won't be satisfied with store food. "Pack your things and leave." "But what's wrong with Grandpa? How can he eat so much?" "You don't want to know what happens when he stops eating." She turned to leave but froze at my next question. "Why do you stay with him?" "If no one controls him, it gets much worse." That morning, the town buzzed with news. A boy had vanished. Overnight. Only bones were found, cleaned, not a scrap of meat left. No animal could have done that, and I knew exactly what could. I returned to the house. Grandpa sat on the porch, pipe in teeth, smoke wreathing his head. His shirt was stained, worse than usual. He stared into nothing. "Boy," he rasped, voice thick with smoke, "fetch me something from the store." Something was off that morning. His posture too rigid, eyes glassy, lips cracked, skin pale and swollen, like raw meat. I mumbled an excuse and went to pack. Then, I heard them arguing. "The kids are coming tonight," he snarled. "They want stories." "No," Grandma said. "Not this time. I'll call the police." "You won't do shit." Then she screamed, not in fear but rage, "I won't let you feed on them again." I backed away. I didn't want to know what that meant. Didn't want to see more. Dusk fell too fast. The kids arrived on foot, alone, drawn like moths. George waited. On the porch, bloated, sweating, unable to rise. Blisters covered his hands. His jaw elongated. He still smiled, but not like before. Something inside him was pushing out. Grandma begged them to leave. "You don't understand," she wept. "This isn't a game. Go home." "Please, Mrs. Arter, just one story," the kids pleaded. "Get out, now," she hissed. "Let 'em be," Grandpa's voice growled from behind, making everyone jump. "Kids want stories." He shut the door after them. Grandpa swelled, grotesquely, glassy-eyed. He stared at them, his pipe forgotten. He didn't speak, couldn't stand. The kids giggled nervously in a semicircle. I watched, helpless, knowing something terrible was coming. "Mr. Arter," one child said, "don't tell our parents we came, okay? They've banned us from going out, but we need your stories." "I won't tell," Grandpa gasped, clutching his chest. "Won't tell?" Then I saw it, his shirt ripping, hands swelling, mouth unhinging wider than possible. He collapsed from his chair onto all fours. The kids screamed. So did I. His arms melted, fat dripping like candle wax. His distended belly dragged on the floor. Blisters erupted across his skin. God help me. His face slid into a wet, jagged grin of meat and fangs. Grandma stepped between him and the kids, gripping a fireplace poker, her eyes darting to me. "Run!" "No more, George," she said. "If you want meat, take me." He didn't hesitate. One swift motion, her head vanished into his maw. The kids rushed the door, but it was locked. They pounded, shrieking. I stood frozen, praying this wasn't real. But it was. Grandpa, now a slithering mountain of hunger, gurgled, hissed, and dragged his bulk toward the children. I wish I could say I helped, but I couldn't. I vomited at the sounds, couldn't even look. Finally I moved, bolting to the attic, heart hammering. I stayed there, shaking, gasping, as the house filled with the sounds of slaughter. Chewing, crunching bones, one voice, then another. Then silence, sniffing, scratching. Something huge lumbered down the hall, snuffling, muttering. I pressed into the rafters, too afraid to cry. Hours stretched into centuries. Then a wet, slurping voice. "Boy, come back. Feed your grandpa. I smell you." I buried myself in dust and shadows, praying to disappear. I stayed until the silence returned and dawn crept in. I crept downstairs, stepping over bones and blood. Grandpa was gone. Only a greasy stain remained where he'd fallen. The house reeked of death. I vomited down my pants. Then I ran. Until the road turned to asphalt. Didn't stop, even at headlights. I told no one, not the police, not the townsfolk. I don't know what happened after, where Grandpa went. I returned home. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I vomited, cried, had nightmares of that night. Months later at breakfast, I met Dad's eyes and asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" He stared into his coffee. "I hoped you'd never go there," he said softly. "You weren't supposed to know that address. Guess blood calls to blood." "What does that mean?" He looked up, eyes bitter. "You're not my son." Silence fell like snow. "I mean, you are my son. I raised you. I love you. But you're not mine. George brought you as a baby. Said he found you by the river. I didn't ask. Didn't want to know. But your real parents? What happened to them?" He swallowed. "George got hungry. That's all. You need to know." "And you? How did you live with him?" "We moved town to town, keeping him fed. But it was never enough. When I was 16, we settled in Lodell. A month later, he brought you. I escaped with you. He stayed. For 18 years. Now I live with that truth. Try to forget. But some nights I wake tasting ash and smoke. I hear news reports. Missing. Animals, missing people. I lock the windows. The guilt eats me alive. Those kids, I knew. I could have stopped it. Could have spoken up. But I was scared, and that, like the nightmares, will haunt me forever. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.